Yun Tianchen and Yun Sung looked at the purple-clothed man in surprise. That old little boy's extremely crafty, but this time the Lu clan's little girl's incident really did infuriate him. The purple-clothed man rubbed the Buddhist beads in his hand, and one could hear that he was rather close to Lu Zhantian from his tone. Yun Tianchen was recently receiving the Empress' cold reception, and he deeply realized that the Lu clan's grievance this time was deep. Imperial grandfather, what do we need to do as the imperial family? The relationship between he and Lu Moz was already cold to begin with in the recent 2 years. If they really fought because of Lu Muyan's situation, then he was afraid that she'd break everything off with him. Do nothing for the time being. Let's talk about it when the Lu clan's little girl returns. The purple-clothed man lifted his head and looked into the distance. It's been said that the Lu clan's little girl is also a clever one. There shouldn't be any problems. When she returns, you both try your best to befriend her. Yun Tianchen and the imperial teacher exchanged a glance and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. He tentatively asked, Imperial grandfather, is it that you desire to befriend the alchemist behind Lu girl? The purple-clothed man sneered, the alchemist behind her is not even known by this honor, so how could one speak of befriending? She and Monarch Ming does not have a normal relationship. Simply based on this, it is worth our effort to befriend. Monarch Ming? You mean the senior sword sovereign who jumped into the lava pool for Lu girl? Yun Tianchen had investigated what occurred at the glacial mountain range, so he also knew the existence of Monarch Ming. Yun Song's cloudy eyes displayed a sharp light. Is it possible the Monarch Ming that your lord speaks of is the person who appeared and saved the Lu clan's girl at the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance? When they heard of what occurred last time in front of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance, they had ordered people to investigate the two sword monarchs present. It took some means and time to find out the identity of the black-clothed old man, but the moment they had just started investigating Monarch Ming's identity, they were warned by the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance's superiors and requested to not spread the news. Due to that, they gave up and sealed the news. Yes. It is him. The purple-clothed man nodded and continued, if I did not assume wrong, then he should be the hall master of the 9-layer hall, and also the real power behind the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. What? Yun Tianchen and Yun Sung exclaimed in disbelief. The purple-clothed man raised the corner of his lip slightly, no need to be so surprised. The sword sovereign powerhouses of the 10 distinguished clans at the glacial mountain range probably did not even recognize him, otherwise they would definitely not dare to contend for the heavenly frost golden crystal with him. I also only accidentally learned of this person's existence when I traveled to the southern region 3 years ago. The purple-clothed man's eyes were full of caution and fear. This person is powerful and mysterious, and the forces behind him is even more unfathomable. Our Yanzhou kingdom can only befriend, and can never, ever offend. An existence not even known by the sword sovereign powerhouses of the 10 distinguished clans? Then this person is too mysterious. Yun Kan sighed. When Monarch Ming saved Lu girl outside of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance, he was only at Sword Monarch Cultivation Base. Just how long has it been, and he already advanced to Sword Sovereign Cultivation Base, and even fought 1 against 9. Truly too strong. The 9-layer hall is one of the most mysterious forces in the southern region. The 10 distinguished clans of the eastern region can only be ranked as third-rate forces there. Not knowing the existence of Monarch Ming is also understandable. He must be exceptional to be able to sit on the seat of Hall Master. Being strong is the first condition. The purple-clothed man explained. Yun Tianchen thought deeply about it, then said, as such, then the mysterious master behind Lu girl is potentially senior Monarch Ming? Highly possible. Otherwise he wouldn't risk jumping into the lava pool to save her. The purple-clothed man said, as for Monarch Ming's identity, you two must keep secret and must not disclose it. Yes. Not to mention the mysterious and unpredictable 9-layer hall, even the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance that spanned the entire Tianling continent was an existence that Yanzhou kingdom couldn't provoke. They naturally wouldn't be loquacious and cause trouble. 3 days later. Lu Muyan and Ming Xiu rode Bing Ji to a barren mountain outside Yanzhou kingdom. The Isolon's figure was too eye-catching, so she decided to enter the city alone. Woman, I'll send you up to here. Ming Xiu reached out and hugged Lu Muyan, then immediately let go. He had probed the entire imperial capital using his mental energy and didn't discover any ambushes. It was safe for Lu Muyan to enter the city and go home alone. After leaving Ming Xiu's warm embrace, Lu Muyan restrained the emotions in her eyes and smiled, all right. Let's meet again. Woman. I believe we'll meet again very soon. On Ming Xiu's face that was so handsome it was otherworldly, rose a devilishly charming smile, and he leaned in beside her ear. If something happens, take the Ming Alliance token that I gave you last time to find Elder Yi at the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. He will obey your instructions. Lu Muyan's clear eyes were filled with a dense smile, all right. Ming Xiu left a kiss on her forehead, activated a yellow talisman, then turned and disappeared into the barren mountain. Beauty, that pervert's gone, even if you want to kiss and hug again, there won't be any more chances. A certain cheap bird's mouth teased. Lu Muyan retracted her gaze and looked askance at Bing Ji. With a thought, a golden ring flew from her hand and instantly encircled the big Isolon's beak. Master, I was wrong, I'll never tease you again. Then, Bing Ji's pitiful voice sounded in Lu Muyan's mind. You're just owing a beating. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him, then raised an eyebrow and asked, are you going to take the initiative to enter the spirit pet bangle yourself, or should I put you in? Bing Ji's 2 watery eyes looked at her grievously, then said in an accusatory manner, why can Mo Yen not need to return to the spirit pet bangle? Master is the best, I won't go in either, alright? Just think about it, how could he, a dignified ice lord of the glacial mountain range, even if his cultivation base was restricted now, toss away his status and stay in the spirit pet Bengal? If those mean friends of his knew, then wouldn't they laugh off their teeth? Mo Yen looks like a fire cloud mink, so it doesn't matter if others see him. But you, with just a soar into the sky above the imperial capital, everyone would know that a descendant of a divine beast came. Do you still think I don't have enough trouble? Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows. This stinky bird didn't only have a cheap beak, but he sure had a lot of issues with things. Bing Ji chalked, then glanced at the cold Mo Yen on Little Master's body, and his eyes rolled around in thought. Then he eventually gritted his teeth, the demonic energy in his Yaofu activated, and his body gradually shrank, finally turning into a multicolored parrot. Master, in this way, I don't have to enter the spirit pet Bengal anymore, right? Bing Ji spread his wings and flew onto Lu Mu Yan's other shoulder and rubbed her shoulder with his head. The light smell of medicine on Little Master was so nice, no wonder that pervert loved to stick to her side. Seeing Bing Ji transform from a giant, Tsundra, an extraordinarily beautiful descendant of divine beasts into an ostentatious multicolored parrot, Lu Mu Yan's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. The visual difference was too big. It's fine for you to stay outside, but you're not allowed to cause me any trouble, otherwise I'll pluck out all your feathers. Lu Mu Yen flicked Bing Ji on the head with her fingers as a warning. This restless stinky bird probably couldn't be locked away either, so she might as well place him beneath her eyes and watch him. Then the little white snake on her wrist flicked its forked tongue out at Bing Ji, expressing its dislike. Master belonged to it, this stinky bird was so detestable. Mo Yen also gave Bing Ji a cold eye, scorned at being associated with him, and spontaneously disappeared from Lu Mu Yan's shoulder, entering the spirit pet Bengal. Lu Mu Yen held her forehead. Her place was almost becoming a demonic beast den. Translated product provided by Mayar Come True. Lu Mu Yen covered her body with a white cloak when she entered the imperial capital city and no one recognized her. When she arrived at the general's mansion, she used her mental energy to investigate the area. When she found that no one was following her, she leapt lightly over the wall and went inside. Who? Lu Mu Yen didn't use any concealing methods when she entered the general's mansion, that's why she was immediately found by the steward. She took off the cloak over her head, revealing a stunning face and shouted with an affectionate smile, Grandpa E. Young Miss has finally returned. Seeing the visitor was Lu Mu Yen, Steward E was so emotional that he had tears in his eyes. He also knew that the rumors outside weren't true. Lu Mu Yen stepped forward to support him, Grandpa E, don't worry about me, I've got good luck. Young Miss is worthy, so you must have heaven's help. Steward E quickly wiped his eyes and said with a smile, quickly go to the secret room, the marshal and general are discussing your business. Alright, Grandpa E, I'll go first then. There was a secret passage under an empty courtyard of the Lu clan which contained several practice rooms and a secret room equipped with arrays. Only people with the recognized aura of the Lu clan could enter. Lu Mu Yen walked to the door of the secret room, put her hands on the stone wall of the secret room, then merged her aura into the stone wall, and a stone door opened in the middle. As soon as she walked into the stone wall, she saw two pairs of excited eyes staring at her. Yenner. Lu Zhantian and Lu Mou stood up at the same time and exclaimed. Paternal Grandpa, Dad, I've returned. Lu Mu Yen walked towards the two with warmth in her eyes. Lu Zhantian was so excited his face flushed entirely red, you stinky girl finally returned. We were so anxious. As long as you've returned. Lu Mou's handsome and elegant face also revealed a rare expression of having peace of mind. Just what's going on? Lu Zhantian took Lu Mu Yen to sit down and ask. Lu Mu Yen also didn't conceal anything and briefly recounted what occurred in the glacial mountain range. She didn't even conceal the matter of subduing the spirit flame and Bing Ji. These were all family that she could trust, so she'd tell them the truth. So that's how it was. Our Lu clan really owes Monarch Ming a huge personal favor. Lu Zhantian felt lingering fear in his heart after hearing it and had gratitude in his tone. If it weren't for the ice bangle that Monarch Ming gave Yenner, his family's Yenner might just have been buried in the lava. Lu Mou nodded in agreement, no matter how strong he is, our Lu clan will definitely repay this kindness. Lu Mu Yen couldn't really speak and stop them. She couldn't just tell her grandfather and father that Ming Xiu, that guy, in actual fact, fell in love with her right. Although she and Ming Xiu both had that sort of meaning, but there wasn't even the first stroke of the character for 8-1, it still wasn't time to tell her family. This is the tier 8 ISO one you contracted? Lu Zhantian's tone carried a little bit of doubt. No matter whether Lu Zhantian looked left or right at the colorful parrot on his granddaughter's shoulder, it didn't appear to be a tier 8 demonic beast. Bing Ji's forehead was creased heavily. His lifetime's reputation was ruined just like this. Well, he turned into a colorful parrot himself. Otherwise it'd be too eye-catching to go out in the true form of an Isolwan. That's true. It's better to hide it like this. Lu Zhantian also hoped that his granddaughter would be low-key for the time being. Master, please take off the golden ring from my mouth. I promise I won't speak nonsense. Lu Mu Yen narrowed her eyes at him and threw a few cold knives too over at him. It'd be strange if she believed this stinky bird's mouth. What if he tells them everything about her and Ming Xiu, then she wouldn't know how to deal with her grandfather and father at all. Seeing the warnings in Little Master's eyes and how he couldn't make any mischief with the seal inside him, he could only sullenly curse Lu Mu Yen and Ming Xiu in his heart. He had lived so smoothly like the wind and water for more than 100 years, but who knew that he'd end up like this because of a simple tease. He really didn't know if it were because he did too many wicked things in his previous life that he ended up like this. Yenner, do you have any plans? Lu Mo poured a cup of tea for Lu Mu Yen and asked with concern. Lu Mu Yen took the tea, staring at the clear tea water in the teacup. Naturally, I won't let those people go. Do you want others to know the news of your return? Lu Mo knew that his daughter had grown up now and had her own thoughts, so he'd respect them. Not for the time being. Just let those people be happy for a few days first. Lu Mu Yen sneered. She was certain that the Gu clan was definitely involved in her assassination. All right. Killing intent flashed past the bottom of Lu Mo's eyes. The people or clans that participated in the assassination attempt of his precious daughter, the Lu clan, wouldn't let go of them. Lu Mu Yen thought it funny when she looked at Grandpa Lu, who was currently staring with big wide eyes at Bing Ji, while the latter stared back with small wide eyes, then said, "Paternal Grandpa, I want to go see the sword sovereign ancestor of the imperial family tomorrow." Lu Zhantian knew that his granddaughter had a lot of mischievous ideas, and he didn't want to restrain her. Sure. I'll take you to see him tomorrow. After conversing with the two a little longer, Lu Mu Yen left the secret room with Bing Ji. Early the next morning, a carriage went straight to the imperial palace from the Lu clan, and spies from various parties returned to report. After only 2 hours, all the clans and forces, whether large or small, of the imperial capital, received news of Lu Zhantian wreaking havoc in the imperial pavilion hall, and they all felt that he had definitely gone crazy. Just what sort of place was the imperial pavilion hall? That was the place where the sword sovereign ancestor of the imperial family lived in. Lu Zhantian, a sword king, dared cause trouble simply for a dead granddaughter. His head had really been clamped by a door. Yun Tianchen was just marking some memorials to the throne and was also shocked when he heard the news that Lu Zhantian wanted to smash the inscribed board of the imperial pavilion hall, so he quickly hurried over. This father-in-law of his truly was courageous and strategic, but whenever he did things, he did it based on his feelings, and he had a bad and stubborn temper. If he offended imperial grandfather, he really didn't know how to help the Lu clan clean the grounds. Yet who knew that as soon as he stepped into the imperial pavilion hall, he saw 3 people sitting in the hall, talking and laughing, chatting over tea. Where was the legendary tense situation as if swords were drawn and bows were bent? Yun Tianchen's hovering heart finally settled. Lu Mu Yen didn't get up when she saw that Yun Tianchen had arrived, only smiled and greeted, "Paternal Uncle Emperor." "Little girl, I just knew you'd come back alive." Yun Tianchen also didn't care about Lu Mu Yan's actions. This girl had always been very bold. Yun Tianchen smiled at Lu Mu Yen, then walked over to the purple-clothed man to greet respectfully. "Imperial grandfather." "Sit." The purple-clothed man nodded. "Lu clan's little girl, for what reason do you come to see this honor this time?" The purple-clothed man moved his gaze onto Lu Mu Yen, his expression gentle, just like an elder member of the family. Lu Mu Yen also didn't want to go around in circles and said straightforwardly, "Imperial ancestor, I want to make a deal with the imperial family." "Want to make a deal with the imperial family?" The purple-clothed man revealed a hint of interest. "Let's hear it." "I believe that you all know about the fact that I'm being chased by sacrificial soldiers who had been sent by an unknown force. I suspect that their main purpose in killing me is for one thing." Lu Mu Yen said. The purple-clothed man stroked the Buddhist beads in his hand and asked after a moment of silence, "Your meaning is, their purpose is the marrow cleansing pill?" Aside from the marrow cleansing pill, he also couldn't find any other purpose for those people to sacrifice a sword monarch and more than a dozen sword kings and sword spirits to kill Lu Mu Yen. Translated product by Mayar Come True. Yun Tianchen and Lu Zhantian had different reactions after listening to the conversation between the two. Lu Zhantian exuded a chill, secretly hunting down his granddaughter just for some pills. Those people truly deserve to die. Meanwhile, Yun Tianchen's eyes revealed slight confusion. If it's for the marrow cleansing pill, then shouldn't they try to catch Lu girl? Why do they want to assassinate her instead? The purple-clothed man looked at Lu Mu Yen meaningfully and smiled. "What do you think, little girl? If the enemy kingdom had a person who owned marrow cleansing pills, and who could also refine the energy nourishing pill, but was the granddaughter of a great marshal who can't be used for themselves, then what would you all do if it were you?" Lu Mu Yen asked with a light smile. Yun Tianchen answered, "Naturally kill." Then he pondered for a while and said, "So that's how it is. It seems that the mastermind behind that force is an enemy kingdom of Yanzhou Kingdom. Paternal Uncle Emperor, have you ever felt tired recently during the day, but at night, you'd be as vigorous as a dragon and as lively as a tiger?" Lu Mu Yen looked at Yun Tianchen with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. Yun Tianchen was taken aback and smiled somewhat awkwardly. There has indeed been such a situation in recent months. Could there be something wrong? He had long suspected that something was wrong with his body, but the Empire's physicians and alchemists had all checked him and there was no major problem. Of course something's wrong. Lu Mu Yen continued, "Can I feel your pulse?" Sure. He didn't doubt Lu Mu Yan's medical skills. He had never told outsiders about his symptoms, so since she could tell his symptoms, then she must have an extraordinary side. Lu Mu Yen probed Yun Tianchen's pulse and furrowed her brows unconsciously. "There's a type of toxin hidden in your body, but it hasn't broken out yet, so other physicians or alchemists can't detect it. But if you wait for them to be able to detect it, then Paternal Uncle Emperor, your entire cultivation base would probably already be lost." "What kind of poison is it?" Yun Tianchen, as the monarch of an entire kingdom, indeed had a heart that was fearless against danger. Even if he was shocked inwardly, but he didn't display it. "A kind of love-making poison one." Seeing the confusion in Yun Tianchen's face, she added, "Paternal Uncle Emperor, when night arrives and you find that you're really energetic, is it when you go to Imperial Noble Consort Gus Place?" Yun Tianchen narrowed his eyes slightly and concealed the dark light in his eyes. He hadn't felt it before, but in retrospect, it was indeed true. Every time he was full of energy and when the fire in his abdomen was burning like a stove, had always inexplicably walked to Gu Yan Ting's palace. As long as he made love for the night, the next day he'd feel refreshed. This situation was as if he had no control over it. The only person he loved was Lu Moz, and yet he was extremely infatuated with Gu Yan Ting's body. This was already incompatible with the calming method he cultivated. It seemed that there must be hidden circumstances. "You mean Gu Yan Ting poisoned me? I once smelled the trigger for this sort of love-making poison on Imperial Noble Consort Gu, so just now when I saw that paternal Uncle Emperor had abnormal bloodshot eyes, and there were blue eye circles, I guessed that you were affected with this kind of poison." Lu Muyen retracted the hand on Yun Tianchen's wrist. "After checking your pulse now, I can be certain that you've been poisoned by love-making poison." Hearing Lu Muyan's words, coldness couldn't help but rise in Lu Zhantian and the purple-clothed man's eyes. There were indeed many obscurities and much darkness in the palace, but Gu Yanting poisoning Yun Tianchen with love-making poison stepped on their baseline. It was undeniable that Yun Tianchen was the present age's most righteous monarch, and at middle phase Sword King cultivation base, he could live at least 200 or 300 years. After he was inaugurated, he exerted himself in prospering the country, ensuring the kingdom was rich and the people were strong, and Yanzhou Kingdom's territory had also expanded a lot. If there was no accident, he'd rule and manage Yanzhou Kingdom for another 100 years. He was also the best candidate for a monarch. But if the toxin in his body broke out and he lost his cultivation base, then he'd most likely die after living for another 100 years. The period in which he was poisoned could also give other kingdoms an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. Crack. The teacup in Yun Tianchen's hand was crushed by him and his face carried some fury. Lu Muyen glanced at Yun Tianchen's teacup that was shattered into powder, and the corners of her lips curled up as she continued, "The loss of cultivation base is just a symptom of the early onset of the love-making poison. If the poison isn't cured, then in the later stages, as long as one adds in a type of insect goo too, those that are infected by the goo poison would slowly become a puppet and be controlled by the person who planted the goo." When she turned into a normal human and studied medicine in the human world, she once entered a continent that prospered in the art of the goo and learnt the skills of poisoning with goo and curing goo. She just so happened to know about the love-making poison goo that Yun Tianchen was poisoned with. "You know so much about this love-making goo, then Lu girl, you must have a way to solve it?" The purple-clothed man turned the Buddhist beads in his hand much faster. Yun Tianchen was his grandson. That girl from the Gu clan dared to have such ideas. She truly deserved to die. Indeed it can be cured. She was here to do business, and this was just a bait for the transaction. "Is it difficult to cure?" Yun Tianchen still had a smile on his face, but there was no temperature in his eyes. Lu Muyen replied, "The love-making poison hadn't yet broken out for the first time, so it's easy to cure. If your cultivation base was lost in the future, and one planted a goo in you, then it'd be difficult to cure. In fact, paternal Uncle Emperor can ask the imperial physician of the empire to examine the center of the sole of your feet. There must already be initial symptoms of poisoning there. No need. Little girl, you can cure this poison, so he'll naturally seek you to cure it." Yun Tianchen displayed trust on his face. Lu Muyen smiled and said, "Then he'll have to go back and prepare a few spiritual herbs and treat it for you in a few days." She also added in her heart, "And also give you time to investigate this kind of poison." "All right. The cure will depend on Lu girl then. After curing it, paternal Uncle Emperor will thank you greatly." Yun Tianchen was also anxious inwardly. If it truly was like what Lu Muyen said, then he'd face the complete loss of his cultivation base and end up being under Gu Yanting's control. He naturally wouldn't be reconciled. Originally, Gu Yanting was just a bait placed by the imperial family on the surface of the water, wanting to catch the big fish in the lake, yet who knew that he was poisoned by the bait after the wrong move? It truly was ironic. "Lu girl, you said before that you wanted to make a deal with the imperial family. It shouldn't just be to cure your paternal Uncle Emperor, is it?" The purple-clothed man smiled enigmatically. This girl was even more crafty than Lu Zhantian, that old little kid, and Lu Muyu, that slippery head. Bringing up Yun Tianchen being poisoned first was probably so that she could have an extra bargaining chip for the subsequent negotiations. If Lu Muyen knew ancestor Yun's guess, she'd probably clap her hands and praise him. The older the ginger, the spicier it was too. Naturally it isn't only about the poisoning of paternal Uncle Emperor, that's just in addition to. Lu Muyen smiled sweetly and blinked her eyes at the purple-clothed man. "Imperial ancestor, what if I said I still have marrow-cleansing pills?" Haha, the purple-clothed man raised his head and laughed, restraining the shock and joy in his eyes. "I just knew that you, girl, is even more crafty than your grandfather. Speak, how do you want to trade?" Although he suspected that Lu Muyen still had marrow-cleansing pills in her hand, but he wasn't certain. After all, it was already incredible that so many such heaven-defying pills could spread around. Who knew that she really had some left in her hands? It seemed that the hidden master behind little Lu girl really pampered her dearly. No matter what conditions she made, their imperial family wouldn't suffer too much. Both Yun Tianchen and Lu Zhantian were eagerly waiting to see what conditions for trade Lu Muyen was going to propose. "Lu girl, how many marrow-cleansing pills do you still have?" The purple-robed man's action of rubbing the Buddhist beads stopped and asked. Lu Muyen stretched out 3 fingers. "There are 3 more. all of which can be traded to the imperial family. Alright. This honor will allow you to make 3 conditions. As long as our imperial family can do it, we will promise you. Seeing Lu Muyen, this little girl, being so straightforward, the Yun clan's ancestor also bluntly promised. And in his heart, he thought this girl sure could hide things well. There were actually 3 more marrow cleansing pills. With his guess, that probably wasn't all. If he let those old things from the other clans know about it, then he might have to personally go out and request the pills for the imperial family. It was better to keep this a secret. Lu Muyen smiled sweetly, like a little sly fox. Alright, imperial ancestor is much more straightforward than paternal uncle emperor. The corner of Yun Tianchen's mouth twitched. Last time this girl had extorted him using the energy nourishing pill, and he only just hesitated for a little bit. Where was he not straightforward? She sure could hold grudges. Lu Muyen ignored Yun Tianchen's gaze that carried slight aggrievement and said to the Yun clan's ancestor, then I won't be polite in making my requests. Make them. First, if the Gu clan participated in the plan to assassinate me, then I want a right to deal with everyone in the Gu clan, including imperial noble consort Gu. Lu Muyen's eyes were sharp. She wouldn't allow the venomous snake of their Lu clan be handed over to anyone else to deal with. The Gu clan felt too weird to her, especially the use of borrowing external forces to forcibly advance their cultivation base, which was the same as those assassins. They definitely wouldn't be as simple as they appeared on the surface, and being merchants for royalty was probably also just a cover. Alright. Even if you don't touch the Gu clan, this honor won't let them go either. There was a deep chill in the eyes of the Yun clan's ancestor. They dared to scheme against Yanzhou Kingdom's emperor, so they must prepare themselves to pay the price. Now that the Lu clan's girl wanted to deal with them, then he was happy to shake his hand off this matter. Lu Muyen nodded and continued, second, our Lu clan wants to build a private army of our own, not affiliated to the imperial family, but will never betray Yanzhou Kingdom. Yun Tianchen revealed a look of surprise. This Lu girl's courage was truly huge. His feelings of affection to the Lu clan were stronger than his wariness of them, so he wouldn't object it. He just turned his eyes to the purple-clothed man to wait for him to decide. The Yun clan's ancestor thought for a bit, then agreed, you can, but the number of people must not exceed 100. This girl, Lu Muyen, was a famous alchemist, and was also backed by Ming Xiu and the others. It wasn't difficult to build a strong private army. In order to not threaten the interests of the imperial family, he could agree, but must limit the number of people. 100 people would affect the imperial family but had no subversive power. No problem. Lu Muyen smiled lightly and agreed. Good armies weren't about quantity, but about quality. The limit of 100 soldiers was also acceptable to her. The last point, you must allow me complete access and to take as I please from the imperial family's spiritual herb treasury. Seeing the Yun clan's ancestor and Yun Tianchen's expressions change, she chuckled and added, of course, I won't take randomly, let alone empty the imperial family's spiritual herb treasury. Instead, I'll use certain pills to compensate, such as the energy nourishing pill I gave you before. The list she issued last time contained a lot of rare spiritual herbs, and the imperial family provided them all. If she wanted to raise 100 people for the private army of the Lu clan, then it was naturally better to use other people's resources. Being able to save some of her own was a portion saved. Hearing Lu Muyen mention the energy nourishing pill, Yun Tianchen's eyes lit up, and when the Yun clan's ancestor remembered what the enshrined alchemist had said, he was also interested now. The energy nourishing pill had miraculous effects on internal and external injuries. Within it, there were several spiritual herb ingredients that even the enshrined grade 3 alchemist, who had studied it for several months, couldn't figure out what they were. If one wanted to obtain it, they had to find Lu Muyen. We can promise you, but if it's just providing energy nourishing pills and if the amount is too small, it wouldn't be effective on the battlefield. So we need you to reproduce a copy for the imperial family. The Yun clan's ancestor knew this request could be a little too much. After all, pill formulas were as precious as the life of an alchemist. But if Yanzhou Kingdom wanted to use it on the battlefield in large quantities, obviously it was impossible to wait for Lu Muyen to slowly refine it. The problem he thought about, Lu Muyen also was thinking about. As if she had that much energy to refine a large quantity of energy nourishing pills or other pills to provide them. It was just a copy of the pill formula. She was also thinking the same, so she was happy to be more relaxed. I can. After she spoke, she immediately took out a blank jade slip, put it on her head, and she used her mental energy to replicate a copy of the energy nourishing pill formula. Then she casually handed it over to the Yun clan's ancestor. This pill formula can be regarded as my sincerity in this cooperation. Little Lu girl is better than the others in the Lu clan in handling affairs. The Lu clan has a hopeful future. The Yun clan's ancestor reached out his hand and took the jade slip. He took a look with his mental energy and smiled at Lu Zhantian with a rare compliment. Lu Zhantian's tall and sturdy body straightened up with a face of seriousness and pride. The color blue is made out of indigo but is more vivid than indigo one. My family's yener is among the best of the best. Hearing Lu Zhantian's words, the 3 people, including Lu Muyen, couldn't help holding their foreheads. His skin sure was thick. Lu girl, this honor can allow you to use the spiritual herbs in the imperial family's private treasury, but I hope you'll promise me a condition. The Yun clan's ancestor narrowed his eyes slightly and covered the cunning light in his eyes. Lu Muyen took a sip of tea and asked slowly, Imperial ancestor, please say. If your Lu clan wants to build a private army, then they must be raised with pills, right? The Yun clan's ancestor said with a smile. That's natural. I suppose the Imperial ancestor wants the pills I'm providing for the Lu clan's private army? Lu Muyen guessed the old fox's thoughts accurately. Haha, the Yun clan's ancestor laughed heartily with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. Little girl sure is smart. Sure. It's just a few grade 1 and 2 pills. Just provide me with your spiritual herbs when the time comes, then find me 2 alchemists. I'll teach them how to refine them and just supply them together. Lu Muyen said with a smile, paying it no mind, but there were calculations in the bottom of her eyes. This sure was a big fish that came to her door. Not only did the imperial family provide the huge cost of spiritual herbs, now she could even use this to ask for 2 free alchemists to make pills for the imperial family and Lu clan. It saved time and effort and was mutually beneficial. Excellent. Yun Tianchen and the Yun clan's ancestor couldn't help but hold their foreheads. What did she mean by just a few grade 1 and 2 pills? Grade 1 pills were already very rare on the market, and grade 2 pills were even more scarce. Even the auction houses of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance rarely auctioned them. At once, perhaps only 1 or 2. If her indifferent tone was heard by the sword masters outside who waited for the pills to enter the market and be auctioned, then that was definitely going to pull aggro. But hearing Lu Muyen's tone, she didn't just know 1 or 2 types of grade 1 or 2 pills. Their hearts grew fiery with desire now. One must know that raising an alchemist wasn't just supplying them with resources. Without pill formulas, then it was like having ingredients for food but no recipe. Since Lu girl wanted alchemists, then they'd naturally give, and she could even train 1 or 2 for their imperial family. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Deal. The Yun clan's ancestor immediately made a decision. Lu Muyen's beautiful eyes were as bright as the stars, straightforward. I hope we could cooperate happily. The 2 parties signed a contract at Lu Muyen's request. When they left the Imperial Pavilion Hall, Lu Zhantian quickly stuffed Lu Muyen into the carriage, then ran outside the hall and began to yell and curse, making the hidden spies unable to resist lighting a candle for him. After returning to the Lu clan, Lu Muyen went to the smithing room first to see Huashao. There was a secret courtyard in the Lu clan which was basically unknown to outsiders. After Huashao arrived with Lu Muyen's letter, Lu Mou arranged for him to live in it. Lu Muyen still concealed her appearance. After entering the secret courtyard, she went to the specially built smithing room. As soon as she walked to the door, she felt a rush of heat. A layer of restrictions was placed at the door of the smithing room by someone. She raised her lips, swept the restriction with her mental energy, and found a loophole in a flower stand by the door. With a casual wave of her hand, a burst of elemental energy shot out and the restriction instantly revealed a gap that could just accommodate a person, and she immediately slipped in. With the restriction touched, Huashao, who was currently smithing inside, yelled, "Who?" Lu Muyen didn't push open the door directly, but instead stood at the door and said one word, "Me." The door opened immediately and Huashao, who had tangled, messy hair and wrinkled clothes, practically flew out from inside. "Little master, you're finally back." Huashao felt that tears were about to wet his eyes. His master finally appeared. Lu Muyen glanced at Huashao with disgust and went straight into the room, scanned the messy smithing room, and her brows furrowed unconsciously. She found what appeared to be a clean spot, sat down, and said, "Huashao, can you stop being so sloppy?" Where was this like a smithing room? It was basically a pigsty. No, it was even worse than a pigsty. Huashao knew that his little master liked cleanliness, and found that the room was indeed messy, so he scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "Little master, I've been focused on studying a magic treasure and forgot to clean. I'll clean it up later." "How it is? Are you used to living here?" Lu Muyen also knew his natural disposition and no longer remained tangled up with the issue of hygiene. Either way, only Huashao, himself, lived here. Huashao nodded, "I'm used to it, but I just miss little master." The corner of Lu Muyen's lips twitched slightly. What did she have that was worth for him to miss? "Enough, I'm here to ask you about your future plans." "Naturally I want to follow little master." Huashao winked at Lu Muyen and made a look as if he had suffered bitterly and nursed deep hatred, saying pitifully, "Little master, you won't not want me anymore, right? Since I accepted you as a disciple, I naturally not want you." Lu Muyen pushed Huashao, who had neared her, away. "Just how long hadn't this person taken a bath? Indiana fact, I need to trouble you for something." "You're my master, please tell me if you have anything to order." Saying you need to trouble me makes it feel as if I'm an outsider. Huashao said with a smile. Lu Muyen felt that she indeed didn't choose incorrectly when she accepted this disciple. She took out a jade slip from her interspatial ring and threw it to Huashao. "This is a method for smithing which is perfectly suitable for you to use right now. You can come to me and ask if you have any questions." Huashao's eyes beneath his messy hair were astonishingly bright. He carefully took the jade slip and probed it with his mental energy to study. As he read and read, he unconsciously became engrossed by it. Half a day later, when he snapped out from reading the smithing method in the jade slip, he discovered that his little master was already no longer in the room. After hurriedly running out of the room and looking around, he found Lu Muyen drinking tea in the shade under some vines in the courtyard, enjoying the cool. Little master. For Huashao, if at first it was because he was attracted by Lu Muyen's rich knowledge of smithing, then now, after reading the smithing method in the jade slip, he was completely loyal. This kind of smithing technique could cause a sensation in Tianling continent if it were revealed. Not to mention grade 3 or 4 smiths, probably even grade 5 smiths or even higher level smiths would desire it. "Is there anything you don't understand after reading the jade slip?" "I'll stay in the imperial capital for 3 days. In the 3 days, you can come to me to resolve any confusions. The smithing method that Lu Mu Yen gave Huashao was something that she had thoroughly studied countless times in her past life, so it was easy to answer any questions. Huashao said with excitement in his eyes, I do. There's a part in this smithing method that said. Huashao told her all the parts he didn't understand before, and after Lu Mu Yen heard it, she gave out incisive answers with 2 or 3 sentences, which made him suddenly become enlightened. He didn't dare to underestimate this little master even more. There was even a feeling of worship for her that rose within him. One questioned and one answered like this for most of the day. Within the 3 days, Huashao was constantly studying this smithing method, and whenever he encountered any incomprehensible parts, he would go to the courtyard and ask Lu Mu Yen. Lu Mu Yen also didn't conceal anything and clarified for him one by one. On the 3rd night, Lu Mu Yen discussed with him again before leaving. Huashao, I have to leave the imperial capital for some time for some things. You can just stay in this courtyard researching the smithing method and stabilize your understandings as a grade 3 smith first. Alright. I'll listen to everything little master says. Huashao was currently completely convinced by Lu Mu Yen, and there was only one thought in his heart. He'd follow her all his life with thickened skin and be hard to shake off. Lu Mu Yen smiled with satisfaction and said, I'm going to build a private army of 100 people for the Lu clan. Their magic treasures will be handed over to you to forge, and I'll let my dad send you the materials. What were disciples used for? After teaching, naturally they were used for hard work. Alright, I must build a private army with the strongest forces for master. With little master's smithing methods, his smithing skills would be even better. Making high-quality magic treasures for 100 people would merely take some time and effort, but it was his honor to do things for his master. Lu Mu Yen nodded with a small smile and stretched out her hand to pat the cleaned Huashao. Smithing is a must, but you must also take care of your body too. Little master, I'll combine work and rest like you said, so you can go to the Yi clan with an ease of heart. Leave the magic treasures the Lu clan needs to me. Huashao was deeply moved in his heart. After living for so long, no one had ever cared about his body. But he didn't display his feelings, and instead remembered it in his heart. Then thanks for your hard work. Lu Mu Yen didn't hesitate to exploit this disciple, but she was also exceptionally generous. When she directly gave a piece of heavenly frost golden crystal to Huashao earlier, it almost frightened him stupid. It's not hard work. It's worth all the hard work as long as it's for little master. Huashao buttered up to her inwardly, feeling exceptionally pleased. Recognizing her as master was truly too correct. Bing Ji, who stood on Lu Mu Yan's shoulders, just didn't like that look of fawning and pursed his lips in disdain. Sycophant. Bald bird, you try and say that again. Huashao rolled up his sleeves and wanted to step forward to take care of that colorful parrot that mocked him all day long. Don't think that just because you're little master's spirit pet that your tail can turn upwards towards the sky one. Bing Ji's eyes were full of ridicule. Just you, a sloven, and you dare threaten this big master too? TSK, go cultivate another 100 years. Do you believe that lousy 3 will pluck all your feathers out? Huashao stretched out his hands to try to catch the colorful parrot. Lu Mu Yen couldn't help rolling her eyes. This human and that bird argued as soon as they saw each other. Her head hurt just from listening. Enough. Huashao, you go back and rest. I'll be leaving. Lu Mu Yen stopped Huashao's outstretched hand, otherwise had definitely chased the bird all over the yard chaotically. Master. Huashao looked at Lu Mu Yen aggrievedly. Why don't you stay one more night and leave tomorrow morning? He actually felt really reluctant for little master to leave. She was beautiful and kind-hearted, talented and had high comprehension, really didn't know which stinky boy would be blessed with her in the future. Sloven, you. Just as Bing Ji wanted to continue taunting, he was stopped by Lu Mu Yan's gaze that appeared to be throwing a cold knife at him, and he reluctantly shut his mouth. Lu Mu Yen rode her horse straight to meet Yunlan outside the imperial capital. She asked Lu Zhantian and Lu Mou, for the time being, to carefully select 200 sword masters with potential from the Lu clan's army, and then she'll personally select 100 of them to raise as private soldiers after returning from the Yi clan. The news that she hadn't died in the glacial mountain range was also temporarily sealed, so aside from the reliable people of the Lu clan, only a few superiors of the imperial family knew. The imperial family and Empire Academy also left a place for her to participate in the event after the trial selection. Taking advantage of the chaos in the imperial capital during this period, she rushed to the Yi clan to cure Elder Yi and Yi Qinglu. Meanwhile, Yunlan wanted to find Yi Qinghan to exchange pointers, so she invited him to accompany her. When Lu Mu Yen arrived at the appointed place outside the imperial capital, she saw a tall, sturdy man riding on a pure black tailwind horse, waiting. Elder cousin brother, I made you wait. Lu Mu Yen rode up to Yunlan's side and said apologetically with a smile. Yunlan turned his head with compassion in his eyes. No problem, I also just arrived. Let's go. With a cue from Lu Mu Yen, her horse galloped away. Upon seeing this, Yunlan quickly followed and asked as they rushed, Yenner, how's your eldest brother? He's already awake, but because he previously used the blood spirit skill, he injured some of his origin, so he needs some time to recover. Lu Mu Yan's eyes were filled with coldness. She must make those behind the scenes pay a heavy price. Originally, Lu Mu Bai wanted to follow them in their plan to go to the Yi clan, but because he was injured and received backlash from when he was in the glacial mountain range, he needed to recuperate, so he had to give up. Fortunately, she had learnt some methods of managing and healing one's origin, otherwise without maybe 3 to 5 years, her eldest brother wouldn't be able to recover. Then that's good. Yunlan sighed in relief. Yenner, how do you plan on taking care of the Gu clan? The methods used by those in black to forcibly increase their strength was exactly the same as that displayed by Gu Yanran. It was absolutely impossible to say that there weren't any connections between the two. I'll wait until they reveal their own cloven hoof one. I always have a feeling that the Gu clan's very weird. What they want to achieve isn't trivial. She decided to lure the snake out of the cave to see what the Gu clan's purpose was. If they're really colluding with other kingdoms, Yanzhou kingdom would be in a disadvantageous position. I wonder if Emperor Father is on the alert. Yunlan sighed. Lu Muyen chuckled. Paternal Uncle Emperor is very shrewd. Always indulging the Gu clan's growth was probably for the purpose of throwing out bait to catch the bigger fish. In the future, he can use the wealth and resources that the Gu clan accumulated over the years for himself too. It was just a pity that everything was almost ruined by the bait. But she had cured Yun Tianchen's poison before she left, so she believed Gu Yanting wouldn't succeed. Are you saying that Emperor Father knew that the Gu clan's hearts were impure? Yunlan had an epiphany. Lu Muyen nodded. I guess Paternal Uncle Emperor is playing a game of chess, and the Gu clan is a key chess piece. So that's how it is. No wonder some of the actions of Emperor Father made me slightly puzzled. But now that I think again, it seems normal. Yunlan thought deeply. Lu Muyen didn't tell Yunlan about his Emperor Father being inflicted with the love-making poison. How is paternal aunt? Empress Mother has been fascinated by arrays recently and has been studying arrays all day long. I think she's been pretty well. Yunlan's expression softened a lot when he mentioned Lu Moz. His former Empress Mother constantly revolved herself around Emperor Father and had no self to speak of. Now that she had something that interested her, it appeared that her whole person had a brilliance she previously lacked with a strange charm. As long as paternal aunt knows what she wants, then that's fine. Lu Muyen also smiled in relief. On this continent where strength was respected, women couldn't always rely on men. The two chatted while rushing, and 10 days passed quickly. The 10 distinguished clans were first-rate forces of the eastern region. They were distributed in 10 big cities near each other, and they were located in the core area of the eastern region. The prosperity of each of the 10 distinguished clan cities were not inferior to that of the imperial capital and was even larger and more prosperous. When the two approached Luoshi city near the Yi clan, the sky had gradually dimmed already, and the afterglow of the rays of evening sunlight enveloped the entire towering city, giving it a taste of dusk. Entering Luoshi city was the same as entering Glacial city, both needing to pay a certain amount of ink-gold coins which could guarantee one's safety in the city. Fighting and killing weren't allowed, otherwise they'd be punished by the Yi clan of the city lord's mansion. After entering Luoshi city, the two didn't live in an inn, but instead directly went to the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion was located in the golden location of the southernmost section of Luoshi city. It was towering and dignified, and even carried a simplistic and unsophisticated aura. There were 2 teams of guards guarding the gate, but there weren't any Qilin statues at the gate of the mansion like other mansions. Instead, there were 2 tall and majestic Tier 4 white Lin lion demonic beasts guarding it. Both demonic beasts carried a strong sense of righteousness and squatted on their heels on the side without being distracted. It deserves to be a clan of spirit beast masters well known throughout the entire eastern region. They used Tier 4 demonic beasts just to guard the house. Yunlan couldn't help but sigh with emotion as he dismounted his horse and stared ahead. Lu Muyen smiled. How can you rank second without the means and skills? Roar. Seeing outsiders approaching, the 2 white Lin lions roared at them with warning. With a smile on Lu Muyen's face, the beast taming method operated in her dantian, and she pulled Yunlan, walking directly forward. Ever since she advanced to the cultivation base of Sword King, she could start to use some secret skills. The first layer of the beast taming method could also begin to operate. As long as the cultivation base of the demonic beast was lower than hers, then she could soothe them all. The 2 white Lin lions suddenly felt a sense of comfort from her, and instantly became quiet. The 2 groups of soldiers that guarded the outside were surprised to see the 2 pass by the white Lin lion safely. The 2 lions reacted a little at first, but now they just squatted on the ground and the ferocious looks in their eyes had long disappeared. The captain of the guards who had better judgment scrutinized the 2, then greeted them with a smile. May I ask what the reasons for your arrivals at our city lord's mansion are? Lu Muyen took out a jade pendant with the word Yi engraved on it and handed it to the capital of the guards with a faint smile, saying, I'm the friend of your young lord Yi Qinghan. Give him this pendant and he'll naturally know who we are. The head guard took a look at the jade pendant and his eyes couldn't conceal the shock. This was the young lord's personal token. It was now in the possession of this gorgeous woman with an otherworldly temperament. It seemed that their relationship wasn't simple. Young miss, sir, please wait a moment, I will report it right away. The head guard's attitude became much more friendly, and after speaking, he asked others to take Lu Muyen and Yunlan into the Yi clan's reception hall. Lu Muyen and Yunlan exchanged a glance, then walked through Yi clan's gate with a smile. The Yi clan city lord's mansion had white marbled steps and carved railings, fine terraces and exquisite rooms, crimson roofs and glazed tiles. After the guard brought the 2 to the reception hall, they told someone to serve 2 cups of tea, then stood aside like an old monk sitting in meditation, unmoving. Lu Muyen picked up the blue and white porcelain teacup with inked bamboo and took a sip. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps from outside the door. Muyen. There were strange emotions hidden in Yi Qinghan's voice and a tone of pleasant surprise spouted out from his lips and echoed in the hall. One first heard his voice then saw his person. Yi Qinghan was still dressed in a dark patterned black robe and had an outstanding temperament, but if one looked closely, one could still find that in addition to his excitement, there was also a slight haggard feeling. Qinghan. Lu Muyen put down the teacup and stood up with a smile. Yunlan also got up and greeted, young Lord Yi. When Yi Qinghan saw that aside from Lu Muyen, Yunlan also came, he was surprised in his heart but didn't reveal it on his face. There was still a slight smile on his face. Mu Yan, third prince, take a seat. Yi Qing Han sat down opposite the two of them and there was less of a feeling of distance compared to when he faced others. Mu Yan, third prince, you two didn't even send a message before you came, I could have prepared. He didn't want to believe that Lu Mu Yan was dead when he was in the glacial mountain range. He originally wanted to wait for her to come out of the lava pool, yet who knew that he and his younger sister were forcefully knocked unconscious by his little paternal uncle and taken away. After returning to the Yi clan, he had constantly been inquiring about any news of Lu Mu Yan. Little paternal uncle had told him that Lu Mu Yan was already saved by Monarch Ming, and he believed it firmly in his heart, but had been worried the entire time, and had been absent-minded in everything that he did. Now that he personally saw Lu Mu Yan alive without any losses, his heart that was hovering had finally been placed back down. I came here to cure Elder Yi and Qing Lu. My elder cousin brother wanted to discuss sword skills with you. It was all spontaneously decided, so we didn't send news first. Lu Mu Yan smiled. Where's Qing Lu? Qing Lu is attending to some guests. I've already asked people to call her. As soon as Yi Qing Han's words fell, Yi Qing Lu rushed in from outside the gate, then hugged Lu Mu Yan and rubbed her shoulder with her head. Elder sister Mu Yan, I just knew you'd be fine. Lu Mu Yan's heart softened a bit and she reached out her hand to pat Yi Qing Lu's head, then said with a smile, I've got a lot of luck. Yi Qing Lu let go of Lu Mu Yan and sat next to her, affectionately hugging her arm, saying, Elder sister Mu Yan, you didn't even say a word in advance before coming to the Yi clan. You made elder brother and I worried to death. Well, isn't it so that I could give you both a surprise? Lu Mu Yan scraped her beautiful nose with a bit of pampering in her eyes. I was just wondering why Qing Lu was running so fast, so it turned out that young Miss Lu came. A clear and melodious voice sounded in the hall. As soon as Lu Mu Yan looked up, Shi Feng, Mu Yi and a beautiful woman in blue came in. This is? Lu Mu Yan smiled lightly and looked at the woman who spoke. She had seen this woman before, but they had never spoken to each other. My name's Mu Xia. We saw each other at the glacial mountain range last time. Mu Xia's attitude was rather friendly, and she wasn't hostile to Lu Mu Yan like Xueling and the others. Lu Mu Yan smiled softly. Greetings, young Miss Mu. Ever since the glacial mountain range, I've been more interested in young Miss Lu. Don't mind making a friend? Mu Xia said naturally and unrestrained with a smile. Naturally I don't mind. Lu Mu Yan usually preferred refreshing and straightforward women, so her impression of Mu Xia was rather good. Yi Qing Lu smiled broadly. Elder sister Mu Yan, Mu Xia is also my best friend. I can see it. Lu Mu Yan was very lenient on the lively and cheerful Yi Qing Lu. Young Miss Lu, third prince. Shi Feng and Mu Yi nodded to them. Lu Mu Yan and Yunlan also exchanged a polite greeting. Young Lord Shi, young Lord Mu. Who knew that young Miss Lu could survive even after falling into that lava pool? You've truly hidden your skills well. Mu Yi said with a smile. It was just a fluke. Lu Mu Yan said modestly. Mu Yi lowered his head and smiled, obviously not believing in her excuse, but he didn't say much in fear of rousing dislike from her. Yi Qing Han checked the time of day and stood up, saying to the few people, dinner is ready, let's take a seat at the table together. Sure. The several people were led by Yi Qing Han to the dining hall for dinner. After dinner, Yi Qing Lu hugged Lu Mu Yan's arm tightly and said enthusiastically, Elder sister Mu Yan, sleep in my courtyard tonight. Lu Mu Yan just so happened to want to check on Yi Qing Lu's body, so she nodded, sure. Young Miss Lu can heal Elder Lu's chronic illness? Shi Feng remained expressionless and silent ever since their meeting to the end of the meal, and only lifted his head to ask when Lu Mu Yan and Yi Qing Lu were about to leave. Why there was any connection between Lu Mu Yan and Yi Qing Han? All of the 10 distinguished clans except the Ling clan had gone to investigate the reason, so they naturally also knew that Lu Mu Yan had treated Elder Lu before. Indeed. Lu Mu Yan didn't conceal it either. I came to the Yi clan this time specifically to treat Elder Lu and Qing Lu. Soon, she'd remove the fetal poison for Yi Qing Lu, so instead of letting these people investigate it themselves, it was better to say it herself. It could even instead rouse good feelings of her among them. Judging from the familiarity between Mu Yi, Shi Feng and Yi Qing Han, the relationship between the three clans in secret was probably very intimate, and there had long been an alliance. She wanted to help the Ling clan deal with the Shui clan and Xian clan, so it was the best choice to develop a good relationship with these two young lords. But in this continent where strength was respected, there were prerequisites for forming a good relationship. In terms of impressive family backgrounds, the Lu clan was inferior to the 10 distinguished clans, so Mu Yi and Shi Feng wouldn't lower themselves on purpose to befriend her just because she was the Lu clan's descendant, or because she was the granddaughter of the Ling clan. Aside from family background, the only reason for these proud, favored children of heaven to be completely convinced and befriend someone was only strength. She was an alchemist. In others' eyes, she couldn't be compared to the alchemists of older alchemist clans like the Shi clan, but if she could cure the chronic illness and poison that even the Shi clan's grade 4 alchemist couldn't cure, then even if she didn't take the initiative, the two clans' younger generation would naturally want to think about befriending her. This time, she came because she thought that participating in the continental tournament for hegemony would delay some time, so she took some time out to come to the Yi clan to cure the poison for Elder Lu and Yi Qing Lu first. 1. It was because of the promise, and 2. Because of her affection towards them. It's just that now she actually met the Shi clan's young lord and the Mu clan's young lord, then she'd naturally have to get acquainted with and befriend them. Those that lived in this world and silently cultivated alone were generally those wandering cultivators who had no one to depend on and without anything to care about. As a daughter of the Lu clan, she needed to share the burden for her clan, and the one thing that alchemists and smiths didn't lack were social connections. This was something that she had already deeply experienced in her previous life. A high-level alchemist or smith didn't even need to take the initiative to make friends with others, and there'd still be countless people who sent themselves to their door to weave a reliable network of connections. This was also one of the reasons why the Shi, Mu, and Yi clan have been standing in the top 3 of the 10 distinguished clans for forever, and one of the reasons why the other clans simply didn't dare to provoke them. To cure Qinglu? You can cure her fetal poison? Mu Xia's eyes were filled with bewilderment and suspicion. Although Lu Mu Yen displayed strong combat power, but the poison that even the ancestor of the Shi clan couldn't cure after trying, could a teenage sword master cure it? Obviously, it was incredulous. Shi Feng didn't display any excessive expressions on his face as usual, but there was a hint of interest in his eyes. In his heart, he also didn't think that Lu Mu Yen could cure Yi Qing's fetal poison, but he wanted to see just what she possessed to be so confident. Young Miss Lu, if you don't mind, could you let me watch how you cure the poison? Hearing Shi Feng ask this, let alone Mu Yi and Mu Xia, even Yi Qing Han wanted to. Lu Mu Yen smiled indifferently and said, you can, but I need to treat Elder Lu's chronic illness first. Do you also want to watch? Elder Lu's chronic illness was much easier to treat than Yi Qing's fetal poison. Young Miss Lu is so generous, then I won't be polite. Shi Feng nodded. Many years ago Elder Lu was injured by a sword monarch sword aura. His meridians were blocked and his cultivation base halted. The Yi clan also used to spend high prices to invite many pharmacists or alchemists to treat him, and even a grade 3 alchemist of their Shi clan came to see him. But in the end, they ended up unable to heal the illness. He had also studied Elder Lu's chronic illness and thought of a method, but it was too dangerous, so he had never proposed it. Now he wanted to see just how Lu Mu Yen cured this type of chronic illness. Mu Yen, you don't mind if 2 more people watch, right? Mu Xia's heart also felt as if it had been scratched by a cat one. Yi Qinglu was her bosom friend. If she couldn't cure the fetal poison, then she wouldn't live past 18 years old. Even if she didn't believe that Lu Mu Yen could cure it, she still felt an inexplicable hope rise in her heart. I don't mind. Lu Mu Yen didn't care how many people watched her treatments. She had a calm and firm disposition, and few people could affect her from applying needles. Mu Yen is indeed straightforward. I'm definitely befriending a person like you. Mu Xia liked women who weren't pretentious, and Lu Mu Yen's straightforwardness suited her taste very well. Lu Mu Yen smiled at her, turned her head, and looked at Yi Qing Han, saying, Qing Han, find a peaceful and quiet place and invite Elder Lu over please. All right. Yi Qing Han ordered the people behind him, then took the several people to a quiet courtyard in the Yi clan. The people chatted idly and waited, while Lu Mu Yen and Mu Xia also felt as if they had been friends for many years and were very agreeable with each other. Especially Mu Xia. She found that no matter what she was talking about, Lu Mu Yen had things to say, and was very insightful. Even Mu Yi and Shi Feng who were sitting by their side couldn't resist but look askance at them. About a quarter of an hour later, Yi Zhan in a simple attire, and an elegant middle-aged man walked in, followed by Elder Lu and a red-haired old man. Yi Qing Han and Yi Qinglu were surprised to see both of them, dad, little paternal uncle. Uncle Yi, Senior Yi. Mu Yi and the others immediately stood up and greeted the two in front formally. Nephews and nieces are too polite. The elegant middle-aged man waved his hand with a smile, then cast his eyes on Lu Mu Yen and said, smiling, this is the little girl of the Lu clan, yes? Greetings, Uncle Yi. Lu Mu Yen addressed politely. We welcome you and the third prince to the Yi clan. Yi Chen displayed some kindness in his eyes, and he and Yi Zhan walked to the other side and sat down, let's all sit. Elder Lu and the other old man in red also found a place to sit, then they looked at Lu Mu Yen together. I've heard that Lu girl doesn't mind others watching when treating illnesses. Yi Zhan and I also came to join in the fun. If it's inconvenient, then we'll leave first. Yi Chen smiled and said to Lu Mu Yen. Lu Mu Yen said neither humbly nor haughtily, this junior does not mind. Her tone was very light, evidently not nervous about 2 big Buddhas too watching her. Her humble attitude carried confidence, which actually made everyone here think even highly of her. Lu girl, feel free to let loose your hands and feet 3. And perform freely, we won't disturb you. This was a guarantee. Lu Mu Yen nodded with a smile, then walked to a seat beside Elder Lu and sat down. Elder Lu, how have you been? Greetings young Miss Lu, this old man is very glad to be able to see young Miss again. Elder Lu's tone was very affectionate towards Lu Mu Yen, and his eyes hid faint excitement. I'll take your pulse first. Elder Lu stretched out a hand and put it on the table between the 2 seats, please. Lu Mu Yen placed 2 fingers on Elder Lu's wrist, and she also probed into his body with a sliver of mental energy to understand the situation. After a while, she retrieved her hand and asked, recently, when the chronic illness breaks out, the pain isn't as severe as before, right? Ever since the last time young Miss treated me with the golden needles, I'm no longer pained to the bones, nor wish to rather die than live, which were things that I used to feel every 3 months when it breaks out. Even if there is a little feeling of pain, it was just like tickling, as if nothing. Elder Lu smiled sincerely. Elder Lu, is it that you can now absorb some spiritual force and run it in your dantian, but it can't remain for a long time? Lu Mu Yen continued to ask. Elder Lu nodded, indeed, but this old man is already very pleased to be able to absorb spiritual energy again. It is all thanks to young Miss treatment last time. Elder Lu is too polite. Lu Mu Yen smiled, I already have a cure for your chronic illness, and I can cure it as long as I refine a pill and pair it with the golden needles. If the young Miss can truly cure this old man's chronic illness, then this old man will owe you a life. Elder Lu clasped his hands together tightly. Only he could deeply understand the feeling of having found something again that he had lost. Lu Muyen smiled lightly and said, I had a deal with Qing Han before, and he's already paid for the fees for your treatment. I'm just here to fulfill it, so Elder Lu has no need to be this formal. Elder Lu, just take the treatment with a peace of mind. I'll discuss with Mu Yen about the repayment. Yi Qing Han looked at Elder Lu with a smile on his lips. Just let him repay this favor. Elder Lu wasn't quarrelsome either, so he cupped his hands at Lu Muyen, gratefully saying, a mere thank you is an insufficient response to such a huge favor. Then I will trouble young Miss Lu. Lu Muyen took out a brush and paper from her interspatial ring and wrote a list to hand to Yi Qing Han. These are the spiritual herbs I need to refine the pill. Please prepare a portion. As soon as Yi Qing Han was about to take it, the red-haired old man next to Elder Lu smiled and said, Little girl, can you let this old man take a look at your spiritual herbs list? Lu Muyen knew the other was also an alchemist, so she smiled and passed the paper into his hands directly. The red-haired old man took the list and read it once, then confusion rose in his eyes. He had never seen a pill formula composed of these spiritual herbs before, and he had a thought in his heart, I have all these spiritual herbs in my interspatial ring. Will little girl refine the pills now? He really wanted to see what this little girl was capable of, and what kind of pill she wanted to refine. Then I trouble Senior to take out the spiritual herbs. I'll refine it now. Lu Muyen also didn't want to delay any more time. All these people remained here undoubtedly because they wanted to see her capabilities, so Shell just confidently and naturally let them see enough. The red-haired old man didn't hesitate either, immediately took out the spiritual herbs that Lu Muyen required from his interspatial ring one by one and placed it in front of her. These spiritual herbs weren't that rare, but they were mostly medicines for dredging and promoting blood circulation. He usually carried some with him, but who knew it could be of use now? Lu Muyen swept the spiritual herbs on the table with her eyes. Seeing that the age of each were relatively high, she took out the cyan cauldron with satisfaction and was ready to start refining pills in front of everyone. Muyen, do you need us to withdraw for you to refine pills? Yi Qing Han knew that many alchemists like to work independently when refining pills and didn't like to be disturbed by outsiders. Lu Muyen didn't expect Yi Qing Han, a man, to be so attentive, but she didn't have those habits. She had already refined pills in front of the imperial family before, so whether there were people or whether there were none didn't have much effect on her. No problem, no need to withdraw. Her words also increased the interest in the eyes of the people present. They sure wanted to see if she was just pretending to be calm, or whether she was actually capable. Under everyone's expectations, Lu Muyen threw a wisp of fire condensed from fire elemental energy into the cyan cauldron. She hadn't formed a core yet, so she couldn't use the core flame, but this continent had one factor that was better than the immortal cultivation world, and that was elemental energy condensation. After advancing to Sword King, the elemental energy flames that she condensed to use for refining pills weren't inferior to core flames at all. Of course, if she used the purple gold spirit flame to refine pills, then it'd be the best, but she didn't want to expose her trump card. Shi Feng and the red-haired old man stared at her refining pills and were startled, and they saw that she had thrown the spiritual herbs into the cauldron one after another in a row. This little girl truly is messing around. Where do you see such a way of refining pills? The red-haired old man couldn't help furrowing his brows as he communicated telepathically to Shi Feng. After all, there were only the two of them here who were alchemists. Shi Feng folded his arms and sat quietly, but his heart couldn't calm down. Is she trying to combine the spiritual herbs together to refine? How could so many spiritual herbs combine to refine? Even your Shi clan's ancestor couldn't do it. I really question if she's just playing with us. The red-haired old man said angrily. Elder Lu and he were close friends. He was excited for a long time after hearing that someone could cure Elder Lu's chronic illness, yet who knew he'd see such a disappointing scene. Alchemists needed to follow the principle of gradual progress when refining pills. After each spiritual herb was successfully refined, then they'd continue to refine the second, then eventually combine all the refined powders to condense the pill. But what was the Lu clan's little girl doing? Throwing all the spiritual herbs into the cauldron indiscriminately, did she think she was cooking? Even when cooking, there was an order to the ingredients, right? Seeing Lu Muyen's actions, Yi Chen and Yi Zhan couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment in their hearts as well. Although they weren't alchemists, but they'd seen many alchemists refine pills. Lu Muyen's approach wasn't like something an alchemist should do. Could it be that she didn't know alchemy at all, and was just teasing them? But Elder Lu's condition was indeed controlled by her. Although disappointed, but no one in the room stopped Lu Muyen. They sure wanted to see how this girl would cure Elder Lu's chronic illness later. Lu Muyen naturally felt the complicated and disheartened gazes of several people, but she didn't care. What others couldn't do, didn't mean she couldn't do it either. Her mental energy was several times, or even dozens of times that of other alchemists. Others could only slowly refine the spiritual herbs one by one, but she could do multiple tasks at the same time and divide her spiritual energy into countless strands to envelop the spiritual herbs, control the flames and refine. The most important thing was that she didn't want to hide her abilities here. She needed the approval of these three distinguished clans in order to act more easily in the future. With a thought, Lu Muyen divided the flames in the cauldron into more than a dozen wisps, individually roasting each spiritual herb wrapped in mental energy. In just a moment, several small piles of different colored powders appeared in the cauldron, and they were all separated by mental energy. The cauldron actually didn't explode? The red-haired old man let out a soft gasp of surprise. He was originally counting down the time, waiting for Lu Muyan's cauldron to explode due to the random refining, but after waiting for so long, no abnormalities occurred. The most important thing was that he actually smelled the scent of successfully refined medicinal powder from the cauldron. Shifeng's expression didn't change, but he was very surprised and confused in his heart. How did she refine so many spiritual herbs at the same time? Yi Chen tapped his finger gently on his thigh. Seeing Lu Muyan calmly continuing to throw spiritual herbs into the cauldron, he spoke telepathically to Yi Zhan, say, do you think she can really refine so many spiritual herbs at once? If it were under normal circumstances, she'd have failed the refining long ago. But I don't smell any burnt scent. Maybe. Although she's young, but she hides her skills well. Yi Zhan had always felt that Lu Muyan gave him an indescribable feeling ever since they first met. She seemed to be faintly dangerous, yet it didn't make sense. However, he didn't regard her as an opponent to be removed. That slight sense of danger was just an instinct, but there wasn't any feeling of terror, which indicated that Lu Muyan wouldn't be a threat to him. Lu Muyan had a variety of methods, but as long as she didn't disadvantage the Yi clan, then they could become friends. The several people no longer spoke and watched Lu Muyan refine pills nervously. Seeing that she was still tossing spiritual herbs into the cauldron one after the other, they couldn't resist twitching their lips. This sort of method of refining pills was probably Lu Muyan's original creation. After about an hour, Lu Muyan had refined all the spiritual herbs in the cauldron. With a thought, the dozens of wisps of flames merged and formed a cluster of large flames. The medicinal powders of different colors were wrapped by mental energy and merged together. She constantly changed the heat between small flames, medium flames, and high flames. Finally, her gaze sharpened. She controlled the fire excellently, and the rudimentary pills in the cauldron began to rotate, slowly growing lustrous and shiny. Rise. After another quarter of an hour, her slender, jade-like hands slapped the cauldron, and 5 yellow pills flew out. A refreshing pill fragrance also spilled out from the cauldron, lingering on the tips of everyone's noses. She took out a white porcelain bottle, waved her hand casually in the air, and the 5 pills that had flown up fell into the porcelain bottle one after the other. After removing the elemental energy flame from the cyan cauldron, Lu Muyan also put the cauldron away. As soon as she looked up, she saw everyone stare at her with shock. Especially the red-haired man and Shifeng. Their gazes were as if it could burn a hole through her. Little girl, what kind of pill did you refine? The red-haired old man looked at Lu Muyan in confusion. He had been staring at this little girl since she began to refine pills. All the spiritual herbs had indeed been used, and he could judge based on the pill fragrance from the cauldron that this was a type of grade 2 pill that had the effect of dredging the meridians and promoting blood circulation. However, it was obviously not enough to treat Elder Lu's chronic illness with just these grade 2 pills. He suddenly looked forward to the next performances of the little girl. Shifeng's eyes were filled with the desire to investigate. Lu Muyan's method of refining pills was simply unheard of. If it were another alchemist who dared to refine it like this, then the entire cauldron perhaps would have long been trashed. In such a short period of time, to be able to refine a grade 2 pill that they had never even seen before, it seemed that she really must have a mysterious high-level alchemist as a master behind her. This is a grade 2 vitalising pill, specifically used to clear meridians blocked by sword auras or internal injuries. Lu Muyan explained with a light smile. Then how were you able to refine, merge and condense so many spiritual herbs into a pill altogether? The red-haired old man's heart itched with curiosity and felt uncomfortable if he didn't ask. Lu Muyan raised an eyebrow and said, regarding this, please forgive me as I have no comment. He couldn't just tell them, my mental energy is much stronger than yours, you all need to be focused when refining pills, but I can split my focus into multitudes. If she really said that, then even if she wasn't slapped to death, she'd probably be regarded as having some sort of mental illness. Lu Muyan answering like this instead made her more mysterious in the eyes of those present. It was only normal not to reveal such a secret. The red-haired old man also found himself to be abrupt and smiled awkwardly. Apologies, this old man didn't intend to seek your methods of refining pills, I was just curious. Lu Muyan knew it was also unintentional, no worries. Elder sister Muyan, you're too amazing. When Uncle Wu refines pills, I don't even feel like he's as relaxed, calm and composed as you. Yi Qinglu had a face filled with admiration. The Uncle Wu she spoke of was the red-haired old man who had questioned Lu Muyan just now, and also the chief enshrined grade 3 alchemist of the Yi clan. Elder Wu had always been open-minded, so he agreed with Yi Qing less words. Little girl is indeed a good seedling for alchemy. Elder Wu revealed admiration in his eyes, then asked, I heard that you already have a master. Lu Muyan nodded and admitted. With such a talented disciple like you, your master must wake up with a smile from dreaming, right one? Elder Wu joked. He secretly pitied that such a good seedling was dug up again by others and taken. When could he find a talented and satisfactory disciple himself? Lu Muyan smiled humbly, Elder Wu gives too much praise. Even she didn't know where her master was, so whether he'd wake up smiling from a dream or not was a real question. Although I've never seen your grade 2 pill, but from the pill fragrance I smelled just now, it's indeed top quality. But it's still not enough to treat Elder Lu's chronic illness, right? Elder Wu spoke the doubt in his heart. Lu Muyan took out a box made of 1,000-year ice from her interspatial ring and said, indeed it's not enough. I also need to use the golden needles and coordinate it with the pill to cure Elder Lu's chronic illness. Then you can start. This old man won't hinder you anymore. There was a look of expectation on Elder Wu's face. Lu Muyen handed the white porcelain bottle to Elder Lu and said, "Elder Lu, pour out one pill and take it, then push all the power of the medicine into the damaged and blocked meridians." "All right." Elder Lu took the porcelain bottle, poured out a yellow pill and put it into his mouth without hesitation. When the power of the medicine was forcibly controlled by him to spread throughout the meridians in his entire body, he said, "Done." Lu Muyen took out a special dark golden needle from the profound icebox and warned him, "There may be some pain when treating with the golden needles. If Elder Lu can't bear it, just say so. Young Miss Lu needs only to set your mind at ease to do what you need. As long as you can get rid of the chronic illness and I can cultivate again, you'll be willing to endure the pain no matter how painful it is." Elder Lu relaxed himself completely and said with a smile. In the past 10 years or so, every 3 months his illness would break out. He could even endure pain that made him rather die than live. Now that they were going to cure his illness, he wouldn't cower even more. Lu Muyen nodded with a smile, snapped her fingers, and a wisp of scarlet flame made from elemental energy condensation came out of her fingertip. She took the gold-colored needle and passed it over the flame before preparing to apply needles on Elder Lu. As soon as she took out the long golden needle from the profound icebox, everyone felt that there was a fluctuation of metal attribute elemental energy in the room. Heavenly Frost Golden Crystal. Mu Yi stared at the dark, golden needle in Lu Muyen's hand with wide eyes and couldn't help exclaiming. The others followed his voice and moved their eyes to the dark golden needle in Lu Muyen's hands. After a closer look, it turned out to indeed be the Heavenly Frost Golden Crystal. Then they scanned the profound icebox and there were actually more than 20 dark golden needles of varying lengths lying inside. With a look, it was obviously a set. This girl really was a prodigal. Where would one find anyone who wasted Heavenly Frost golden crystals like this? This was what everyone present thought. Yi Zhan looked deeply at the golden needle made by Heavenly Frost golden crystal in her hand. Then he remembered the Heavenly Frost golden crystal in his interspatial ring that had been frozen by an array and was difficult to crack, and also couldn't resist holding his forehead. This girl wasn't only a prodigal but was also a little fox. After she cured Elder Lu's chronic illness, he had to have a good discussion with her. Elder Wu looked at the Heavenly Frost golden crystal that had been refined into golden needles, feeling his flesh hurt. He could no longer describe his feelings. This girl was actually here to provoke people today, right? Lu Muyen actually didn't want to take out such cool golden needles, but using golden needles made by Heavenly Frost golden crystal was indeed more conducive to curing Elder Lu's chronic illness, so she could only be a bit high profile. Did this girl snatch the Heavenly Frost golden crystal? Yi Chen asked Yi Zhan telepathically in astonishment. Yi Zhan smiled bitterly, "No. That day, Monarch Ming snatched 3 pieces and Lan Si and I took a piece each. Although Lan Sis one was swapped back from me, but it must be for himself. The one in little Lu girl's hands must be from Monarch Ming. It seems that the relationship between her and Monarch Ming really isn't shallow. Could Monarch Ming be the respected master behind her?" Yi Chen guessed that with Monarch Ming's status in the 9-layer hall, he shouldn't be too young. Plus it was said that Lu Muyen had a mysterious master yet had never revealed themselves before. But with the familiarity between the two, they probably had a master-disciple relationship. Yi Zhan pondered for a while, then telepathically said, "That's hard to say, but if you can give the Heavenly Frost golden crystal to little Lu girl to be so prodigal with, then the relationship wouldn't be ordinary even if they're not a master-disciple relationship." Whenever they spoke of the Heavenly Frost golden crystal, Yi Chen felt his flesh hurt. This girl is too prodigal. The Heavenly Frost golden crystal was used by her to refine into golden needles for treatment just like this. If the other old fellows from the 10 distinguished clans knew, then wouldn't they be so furious? She's just that different from others. Otherwise Qing Han wouldn't have fallen for her. Yi Zhan's lips revealed a very faint smile. Yi Chen sighed. He also noticed his son's recent abnormalities. He was originally still a little opposed to him constantly thinking about a legendary trash from a small clan of Yanzhou Kingdom, but after seeing Lu Muyen today, he discovered that this sort of woman was indeed very attractive to people. She was full of spirit, was clever and bright, and had exceptional talent. The most important thing was that she wasn't humble or haughty when doing things, not arrogant or impetuous, and carried a self-confidence and uninhibitedness. Among the younger generation of women in the eastern region, Lu Muyen was the girl with the best behavior and temperament. What trash, it seemed that those couldn't be trusted at all. The divination of the divine seer had never been wrong before, and this time, was also made fact on Lu Muyen. Seeing Lu Muyen this time had completely changed the impression Yi Chen painted of her before, and he decided not to object to the fact that his son liked her. Such a woman was indeed qualified to be the future mistress of his Yi clan. She started applying needles. Yi Zhan's gaze always followed Lu Muyen. "Elder brother, watch carefully. She has her own set of methods for performing the art of the golden needles." Hearing this, Yi Chen immediately looked towards Lu Muyen and found that each time she used the golden needle, it was like forming an array like forming seals in mid-air, drawing something, before piercing it into Elder Lu's body. He rubbed his chin and watched with some interest. Every time Lu Muyen applied needles, she'd collect spiritual energy that had been filtered in her green sea of fog onto the needle. She discovered that the filtered spiritual energy had the effect of repairing. The dark golden needles of various lengths seemed to come alive in her slender fingers. They constantly pierced into Elder Lu's body or pulled out and burned by the flame on her fingertip made by elemental energy condensation, then continued to be applied. Her movements were graceful, her face was so serious that others couldn't disturb her, and her forehead was gradually covered with a layer of fine sweat while her hands kept moving. Everyone quietly watched her apply the needles as if this wasn't a medical treatment, but a golden needle performance, exceptionally brilliant. Elder Lu gritted his teeth tightly. Not only did the prickling sensation all over his body not make him feel uncomfortable, but instead, he felt extremely excited. Those meridians that had once been blocked for more than 10 years were actually able to accommodate to the passing of the needle auras. Elder Wu stared at her applying the needles without blinking, and his eyes grew more and more shocked. This truly was a marvelous skill. On Shifeng's seemingly paralyzed face was a rare trace of astonishment. He stared, dumbfounded, at Lu Mu Yan applying the art of the golden needles, and attempted to remember every movement of hers. Finished. 2 hours later, Lu Mu Yan withdrew all the golden needles, revealing a satisfied smile on her gorgeous face.